Has everybody been to a new area? I'm sure everybody's went somewhere new and run aground, or you can look at it and watch how it ripples. And pay attention to it, see what it looks like. Because the next time you come through there, the sun might not be out, but you'll see that ripple. And you'll know, okay, I need to stay more to the left, or I need to stay more to the right. There's a lot of things like that that just come with time on the water. And yeah.
And these low winter tides help with that, don't it?
Sometimes. You know, if you really want to see what an area looks like, go on a negative low. We have some major negative lows this time of year. It's -6s, -8s, and you can sit out there in 4 feet of water and look back and just see barren flats. But you'll see troughs that got water in them. And those troughs, they'll be fish in those troughs. You can take your boat and power pole down or anchor off and then get out and walk those troughs and fish in those troughs, and there'll be redfish and trout all up in them. A lot of times. A lot of guys are doing airboats now. They're running airboats all over that sand, basically, or mud. They're running through it, getting to holes where nobody else can get to, and they're catching a lot of redfish, a lot of trout. But if you look at it on low tide and you see what it looks like, you see what the bottom looks like, where the troughs are, and you mentally mark that stuff, and you come back on an incoming tide, you'll know. Now there's a trough right along here somewhere, and you got a visual in your mind of it, and you're casting towards where you think it is. You start catching fish. Baits are probably in the trough. And a lot of people I have fished with in the past, they'll work an area and they'll just keep on going. This is something I learned when I bass fish, is I'd work a shoreline. If I caught 5 fish in 50 yards, I turned around and came back and worked it again. And kept working it until the bite shut off. And I've seen a lot of guys, especially working docks, they'll fish a dock, they'll catch one, they'll fish another dock, they'll catch a couple more, and they'll just keep working, and next thing you know, they're gone. If I'm fishing docks and I fish a dock and I catch one, probably I'm going to turn right back around and pitch another bait under that dock. See if I can pull another one out. Pull another one out, then I'm anchoring up.
It doesn't seem to scare them when you catch one, it doesn't stir up anything.
Sometimes that just increases the bite. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot lately. We'll be sitting there, I'll have 3 people fishing, everybody have a bait out, they're all sitting there holding their rods, and all of a sudden somebody sets a hook, and another guy's in another one, and then everybody's hooked up. And it'll be like that for a couple minutes, they'll shut off, and then somebody hooks up, and somebody else hooks up, and everybody's hooked up again. There's been a lot of that lately. Especially with the redfish. The redfish seem to really, really like this cold water. I mean, if I had to target anything, if somebody called me today and said they want to fish tomorrow, what can we catch? Redfish. The cold front comes through tonight, and we still got to fish tomorrow, we're fishing for redfish.
I went to Saturday. They said they've seen throughout Florida more redfish, more rats than ever in a lot of years. So they're expecting the redfish to be, beautiful and be big and come up in a lot of rats.
Dave, what was the number of the amount of redfish they have released in the Alafaya River? Was it 4 million?
4 million.
4 million redfish that the FWC has released into the mouth of the Alafaya River. And a lot of those fish have been tagged, and I know I've caught some over in Port Soda. I know fish have been caught in the Upper Bay that have tagged them. They've really done a phenomenal job with the red fishery over the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, they have released a lot of fish. And those fish are now mature fish, and they're making babies. And that's pretty much what we're catching right now, is a lot of the 17, 18-inch fish. Nursery fish in estuaries, that's where the babies are, that's where they're growing up. There's a lot of them out there.
Do you release them?
No, it depends. If it's a slot fish, I want to charter and they want fish, yeah, we keep it. And we call it tag in, but I always write the numbers down on the tag and call the number on the tag. and report that fish is being caught. You can actually clip the fin of a redfish. And if you go to, I think what the website is. Yeah, it's the DNA. And you do the fin clip and you send it to them. And they can send you back where that fish was, you know, if it was raised in the hatchery, what hatchery, where it was released, when it was released. I don't know that they were all tagged. I think a lot of them were. Huh?
No, they weren't tagged. The Redfish DNA project is over,
It's over?
so they don't do that anymore. And they only tagged a few of the redfish out of the 4 million, not a lot. But they still tag in redfish today. They're putting microchips in some of them down at the Port Manatee hatchery, and they'll release them. So, and they'll have a tag on it. So if you have one with a tag, you might have a transmitter in it.
Okay.
You need to check.
That's, like I say, you learn something new every day. That's something I didn't know. How we doing, Mel? You coming along? Anybody have any questions about, you know, going to a new area? Or a new area they're interested in going? Yeah.
Tell them what size fluorocarbon you use. I think that's funny.
Dave thinks it's funny. And he likes to laugh about it.
No, I know, but you're the first guy that went down that low. I'm just afraid.
I use 14-pound fluorocarbon for everything but snook and tarpon. Snuggly's not tarpon. You do too? See, he does too.
So does he.
Right here, bud.
You know, I used to use, you know, a lot of 30, and
You're fishing out the Gulf, they're gonna go anywhere, just hold on. They're gonna come in.
you know, fishing tournaments, we're fishing a lot of open water, a lot of clear water. And, you know, if you're fishing like that, the lighter you can go, the better. I've caught, matter of fact, the biggest redfish I ever caught on my boat was 22 inches. It was caught by a guy who's 75 years old, and it was on 14-pound leader. He had that fish on forever. He failed to tell me when he got on the boat he had surgery on his hand, and he needed the handle for the other side, on the other side of the reel. And his wife caught, I don't know, 6 or 8 fish while he was catching that one. But, you know, 14-pound, pretty much for everything but snook. I used to use a lot of 20, but, you know, as I've dropped down using these, you know, I'm using pretty small reels. They're 2,000 series reels. I've went to 10 on those, but mostly on charters, mostly 20. But this time of year, I'm using just about all 10. You can make a lot longer casts and you know, get further away from the boat, which is always better, especially when you got cleaner water. This time of year, there's not a lot of algae in the water. There's not a lot of, you know, it's a lot cleaner. It's, you know, real clear in places, unless you got dark bottom. But search and destroy in a new area, any time of year, and you can't go wrong with the gold spoon. Anywhere you go, you can never go wrong with that. It don't matter if it's January, October, whatever. It's a great bait. It's always a great search and destroy bait.
Do you ever put a trailer on it?
I don't. The only thing I do is I vary my retrieve depending on how cool the water temperature is. The cooler it
As long as you have the
is.
split ring, do you use a loop knot still, or do you use it just leave it?
Tonight I just tied on a regular knot. I just kind of tied it on real quick, but I'll use a loop knot. This is a Captain Mike spoon. I don't know if everybody familiar with those.
Yeah, they rust out.
If you're using them, I would recommend to change out the split ring with a Spro split ring. These split rings will give on you. I've had a lot of problems with
But
that.
with the split ring, do you still use the loop knot?
Yeah, I like to. As you can see, I tied that one in a hurry, it came undone. But it's a great search and destroy bait. And again, depending on the water temperature, water clarity, you know, I try to make really long casts and then bring it back. And if the water's cooler, you know, in the 50s and 60s, I try to just almost drag it along the bottom. So as you know, this is mostly a redfish bait. And by dragging it along the bottom, again, it's making that little puff trail like the jig does. And you're kind of just dragging it, holding your rod tip down. And if the water's warmer in the 70s, upper 70s into the 80s, I'll hold that rod tip up and I'll bring it a lot faster. But, you know, we've done real well, especially down in Boca, fishing these gold spoons, fishing the creek mouths up into the creeks for redfish. Caught a lot of fish. And you know, if I go to a new area, the two things I got tied on: gold spoon and a jig. And you really can't go wrong with that combination. If you got two baits and you want to go to a new area, it's a great way to, like I said, search and destroy. You know, you find them. You may, and with a spoon, not necessarily finding them by catching them. Sometimes it's finding them by feeling them. Y'all know what I mean by that? You ever thrown a spoon out and brought it back over an oyster bar? You feel that thump when it comes across the bar? It's almost identical to a redfish bite. And if you're out there and you're fishing, you're throwing that spoon, you're throwing it out and reeling it, throwing it out and reeling it. You feel that thump. Okay, you know you're on the right, you're going the right direction. First thing I would do is I'd slow it down. Because apparently they swat it. And they'll swat it with their mouth closed. I've seen them, I've literally, you know, a little further than the length of the rod tip away, I've seen redfish come up at a top water plug and come out of the water with their mouth closed. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're trying to pin it. Because their mouths, you know, a snook has that long bottom jaw, faces up. They like to feed this way. Redfish like to feed this way. So if when they come at a bait, a lot of times they'll come from the top and they'll try to bring it down to the bottom, pin it, and then suck it in. And the first time I saw that happen, like I said, was on top water plug. A friend of mine was working it. He got real close to the boat and he's twitching it. And I could see the fish coming up behind the plug, and I'm like, you're running out of room, you're running out of room, you know, almost in the boat. And the fish comes up, and it was like it was slow motion. I could see that his mouth was closed. And he came down and tried to push the bait down to the bottom. As soon as I saw that, we started waiting. After we saw him try to bust it, we would wait. Just a split second, and then rip it. And almost every time we had him in the mouth. And what they were doing, like I said, they were chasing that bait, and they were coming up, getting it from the top, pinning it to the bottom, and then sucking it out. And you know, I think they do that with spoons a lot of times. I think they see it. I think they see the flash, and they come up and just hit it with their nose. Not necessarily trying to eat it, but just seeing what it is. So if you're getting that, you know you're in the right, you're going the right direction. And you know, maybe it's what I would do if I'm getting a lot of that. I'm not getting the hookups. Is I would switch, and I switch to a jig, and I try to work the jig, especially the paddle tail jig, the same way. I try to bring it in real slow, doing the bumps, the twitches, making those puffs, and I'm going to try to match the color to whatever color spoon I was throwing. So if it's a gold spoon, I'll try to go with like a gold body jig, like the DOA and Gold Rush. The Gold Rush belly, it has a nice flash. It'll flash just like that spoon does. And a lot of times they'll see that and they'll inhale that. It's already on the bottom. And again, that's where they like to fish. I'm trying to fish mostly dark water. I'm trying to stay out of the light color water. I'm using the dark backs like a gold belly. And you got some up on the wall there. I'm trying to match the water and the bait. And that the DOA cow with the black back Gold Rush is a real close match. to a creek chub. They're about the same size, have great action, and that dark back works well in the dark water. And the gold rush belly just gives enough flash to catch their attention, make them turn their head and see what's going on. Redfish, a lot of times, they have their heads buried down in the mud because that's where they eat. They'll bury all the way down to their eyeballs.
You ready?
And they'll be rooting around, and they're seeing everything that's going on over here.
How do you judge the weight of your jigs?
Sean.
Water depth and
Tim's team.
current speed.
I want to introduce you to Sean, because he's on the
If it's deep water,
Bees.
I generally like to start off with a 16th ounce jig head. But if I'm fishing a narrow creek and that current's ripping, I'll go up to an 1/8 or a quarter. It just depends. But if the water's just barely moving, I'm using the 16th most of the time. I use 1/8 more up this way, and I use more 16th in Tampa Bay because the currents are different, the tides are different. Here you have a lot of real strong tides in and out over here, whereas the bay, the tides aren't near as strong. Any more questions? I don't think we're going to get it up.
For us that know what Google Earth looks like, you're just talking to find where it changes for you. Like if you look at the Bahamas, you can see on the west side it's all tan. You can almost see the beach.
Exactly.
You can see the ripples in the beach.
Yeah.
You can see the ripples on the water.
Exactly. If you're looking on Google Earth, and you look at it, whether you do Google or Flash Earth, you're going to see, you can see the sandbars. So, first thing I do is I look at the sandbars, see what they look like.
Like St. Joseph Sound, you can see the horseshoe out there.
Exactly. Exactly. You can see that stuff. So, if you're looking at it, and you're seeing the sandbars out there, you know what you're looking at, and you got a bar out here like that. You got another bar like that. You can look at this, and sometimes you can tell when you look at it if it's dark, if it's just deep water, or if it's grass flats. If it's grass flats, you might see little patches. Call it salt and pepper bottom. A lot of people call it salt and pepper bottom. It's basically potholes along the bottom. And if you go on Google Earth or Flash Earth when you get home, and you go out here to Anclote Island, and you go on the east side of Dutchman Key, and you look out there, you'll see all the potholes, every pothole out there, you can see it. You'll see it. If this is Anclote, that's Anclote, and that's Dutchman right there, there's a trough that goes just like that into Dutchman Key. It goes in, around, and Anclote kind of goes like that, and you can see all the potholes, you can see this trough, plain as day. There's another trough right out there. You can see all that stuff just plain as day out there. And you can start out working these potholes, working this trough, work your way in as the tide's coming in, and have a lot of success out there. He gets it up on his laptop, y'all can come up here and look at it.